So, if you listen to these in order, you will be listening to me sitting outside of a winery in Oregon last week with makeup on my face and looking like any other thing in the world besides a box troll or a dirt urchin, which, if you could see me now, I'm sitting inside of my dirty car outside of a brewery in Colton and I am post-hike and I am so sweaty and I fiddle-faddled with this Camelback that's new to me for like entirely way too long, embarrassingly long enough that I like really considered just opening up the bladder itself and like trying to can you picture a Camelback and like the hole in which you fill up the bladder, like the water bladder itself? Like I'm just trying to envision like creating a straw out of my mouth and like trying to drink water out of that thing because that's how thirsty I was and I couldn't. And actually, if I'm being honest with you, I still can't really get the water out of there. Like I feel like I have to entirely bite the tip off in order to like get a trickle of water out. Oh, what is my life? Anywho, a couple of episodes back, we were talking about like transitional meals, transitioning into the fall, and how this time of year, historically speaking, has always been my most favorite time of year in terms of, I mean, it's like I think I love all of the seasons for different reasons, but I do think that fall, if I had to choose a season, is probably my most favorite season. But it's also my most favorite season for getting back into the kitchen and sort of restoring my own faith in my, I don't know, culinary creativeness. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I feel more creative in general this time of year, whether that means that I'm writing more or I'm reading more. Like I feel like I'm just creating more. And so we also talked about how I used to keep a whiteboard in my kitchen of all of the things that I wanted to make or bake throughout the fall and then into the winter even. And I don't know, like I've been thinking a lot about just transitions in general with the equinox and with fall approaching, and it's I feel like, I don't know, maybe you can relate anywhere across the country, but I definitely feel like in some ways there's like a very slow trickle into fall, and then in other ways it's like a light switch, right? I mean, a couple weeks ago it was like well into the 90s, pretty consistently every day, in the 70s, in the mid 70s by the time my kids woke up and we, were getting ready for school and got them to school and that sort of thing. And now we're waking up and it's sitting, in the low 50s. Sometimes it's like dipping into the high 40s even. And I'm just like, holy shit. I feel like I went to Oregon and then I came back and now everybody has to wear like jackets to school in the morning, and I kind of love that. I do not love that we experience all 4 seasons in Denver this time of year. Like, it's pretty fucking chilly in the morning, and then it's like spring and nice by the time I drop the kids off, and then it's like hot in summer by the time it's 3:00 in the afternoon, and then like by 8 p.m. like we're back in actual fall. So did I just make up an additional season? Spring, summer. Okay, no, I didn't. Holy shit. I was like, wait, how many seasons are there? Anyways, I was thinking about like what it means to me and what it looks like just transitioning in general. And like some of the first things that come to mind are with my job and being the owner of a micro bakery here in Denver, being at the farmer's market. I'm at City Park Farmer's Market with my bakery Butter Moon every Saturday from 8 to 1. And, you know, we are like very quickly approaching the very last month of this market. And I'm trying to like realize and identify the fact that this is something that I've done for the last 4 months and like how crazy that is to me. And soon that's not going to be a thing anymore. And how I'm going to transition back into like a business model that I was originally working with, and that looked like essentially my clients picking up or opting to have their pastries delivered. And it's like I am saddened, you know, to like think that I won't be directly in community every single Saturday with these people that I have like come to know and love and respect and build relationships with, and just sort of like have a part of my routine, you know? But there's also this other side of me, you know, in terms of transition that's like welcoming something new. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a much slower pace, you know, but it is a little bit new. Again, I mean, it's something that I've done, but I haven't necessarily done it at the location. And I mean, the reality is that I'm not the same business owner, and Butter Moon isn't necessarily the same bakery that it was almost a year ago, you know? So, and then the other thing that I've been thinking about is just like more noticeable transitions, like rebounding from vacation, you know, and like what that looks like and the ways in which like we're impacted by that. And it was making me think about, you know, like how I showed up in the kitchen immediately having returned. So if you listened last week, we talked a lot about just like really simple, divine quality food and meals that don't require like a lot of fuss and additives and preparation. And I mean, you're sort of just eating things as is, and they're pretty fucking close to like natural form. You know what I mean? And I found myself, kind of like leaning in and reaching for those things, you know, like we are rapidly approaching the end of tomato season and transitioning out of peach season already and landing into apple season. And Jade, one of the farmers that's a neighbor of mine at the farmer's market, gifted me a handful of like really beautiful heirloom tomatoes. And again, I mean, that's just like something that doesn't require like a lot of fuckery and like a lot of messing with, you know what I mean? And I made like a really simple like pasta salad dish with it. And I did have, like, I got some peaches that I threw in the refrigerator and, you know, like slice them for breakfast on our yogurt bowls that I make for me and the kids in the morning before school. So I don't know. I mean, I found myself, and I think that, I don't know. I think that I remember a pretty significant and distinct moment reading this book about this meal that this woman was creating for herself. And, you know, it was just like, you know, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then like soon it was just like, do you know what I'm talking about? When you're like, when am I going to be able to create a meal out of like 2 or 3 things and have it like feel seemingly bougie, even though it's not bougie. It's just like quality foods as is. So anyways, I think that I'm like kind of cool and content with not overthinking things in the kitchen right now, and sort of like using up like produce that is like not going to be as readily available to me, and certainly not in the ways in which it tastes when you're getting it directly from Jade and her small farm in Brighton, Colorado. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's nothing like homegrown tomatoes. Let's just be honest with one another, okay? And anyways, I also was like committed to not overthinking in the kitchen this week anyways, and that served me well. And if you know anything about me in real life, you know that that is not something that necessarily comes easy to me. And so I also took the opportunity to like, yeah, kind of start thinking about, you know, transitioning into fall again. You know, now we're actually here. It has arrived. We are technically in fall. And my life has transitioned in big, deep, and vast ways from a year ago, right? I mean, the reality is like I'm not going to be able to have a whiteboard in my kitchen, although I do have a whiteboard in my kitchen, but I'm going to be mindful and taking it really easy on myself to not create this big daunting list of, you know, regardless of like how well intending it is and how much I really do want to make or bake, you know, or create these certain things in the kitchen. I want to like pick a handful of things to make this fall that are new to me and feel, I don't know. I love doing new shit like that. I feel like it's good for your creativity in general. But I also, you know, like I love making new stuff. Like I'll never forget the first time that I made biscuits. I'll never forget the first time that I baked a loaf of bread. I'll never forget the first time that I made cinnamon rolls and I fucking hated them, but then I did it again and I loved it. You know what I mean? So, I'm curious to hear what are some things that you're making this fall or might be on your list of things to try to make. I have actually always wanted to make babka, and it feels really intimidating to me, although I have made other things that are similar, like, you know, same concept, same approachability, same structure, but for whatever reason, I like can't bring myself to do it. And also I can go to Rosenberg's and get really good babka. And so there's also that where I'm like, and then that got me thinking about like, we need to do an episode about all of the things that like, is it actually worth it to make? Or should I just go out and get it? So I'm actually making a note of that right now. What is your list of foods that like, sure, in theory, it sounds like fun and exciting to do, but would I just be better served? And even like, will I just eat better food if I just go and get it elsewhere? As I verbalize this, I think I'm just gonna, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna continue buying babka for now. But, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to just like the newness of fall and the newness of produce. The reality is that like, you know, while we may in theory only have a month left of the farmer's market that I'm at, that's still like, that's a tremendous amount of time to have access to, you know, conscious, local, like homegrown produce. I mean, like that's huge. You know what I mean? Whether it's like squash or apples or, I'm actually trying to think